Public participation for tonight, please keep it to the 3 items that are on the agenda. It's a 3-minute time limit. And I ask those who can keep it pithy, because the whole purpose of trying to have meetings and special meetings is trying to get some of the work done. And I try not to try and tie up too much public time, even though because it is my intent as chairperson that this LDA, sometime in the month of September, it may even be the first one to go out for a public presentation, hearing, and all that. It might be our first meeting in September on the LDA for the business plan, so it depends where we're at. But I'm trying to knock off each one of these, I call them the 3 sections, and get it cleaned up and cleared up. So, having said that, public participation, anybody here from the public who would like to say or speak or do anything?
Before you open that, Mr. Chairman, do you have any extra copies of the agenda here for the public? Printed copies?
I can make some extra copies.
Oh, thank you.
Well said.
So, is anyone speaking?
Do you have a sign-up sheet or no?
Hmm?
Good. Free form.
I'm sorry?
The sign-up sheet is right here.
No, that's a different sign up sheet. There is no sign up sheet for speaking.
Raise your hand, stand up, raise your hand, just say your name and address for the secretary. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Sarah Hunter, East Norwalk. So my concern is that that the council does due diligence a little harder before this thing comes up for the LDA vote. My 3 top concerns are that the traffic impact studies that I think you need before you can even look at the LDA again, and the fact that you need a better plan up front to decide if the LDA is the right thing. And it's not that I'm anti-mall. Everybody wants to paint anyone who has questions as anti-mall. I'm not anti-mall. I just think it needs to be the right thing for Norwalk. And I have a large concern about the traffic impact studies. From GGP's site that I looked at today regarding traffic, it says that the master site plan has a similar amount of square feet as the current approved plan, and although the mix of uses is different, we believe the planned improvements are likely to accommodate traffic demand with reasonable modifications. For instance, while it may not be required by the state or local authorities, we are studying dedicated below-grade entrance, blah, 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 to accommodate a turn off of West Avenue that is quick and efficient. So the point being, yeah, it's not the same mix of use. So your traffic information is completely not based on anything. If you have a different use, a different mix of uses, you need a traffic study that fits that before you can say it should be fine. And I think that Norwalk overall needs a more comprehensive approach to traffic studies for this mall, because if you look at exit 14, 15, and 16 right now, they're a nightmare all the time, not just Christmas shopping kind of nightmare. So you have to look at it from the impacts to the other exits, because I believe this will take overflow into all the side streets. That's a quality of life issue thing. The jobs, I think that the Comm Council needs to do a little more due diligence on whether or not this is really going to generate the jobs and money that GGP says, because for instance, on their site today, it says during the construction phase, an average of $74,000 salary for people who are working there. Well, if I also went to the Connecticut Department of Labor's site today and looked into all the different kinds of construction jobs and averages based on 2014, and as it turns out, a person would have to be making $35 an hour in order to make $70,000 a year, and that's at 40 hours a week. None of these jobs come in at $35 an hour. They're all coming in around 25, 17, 20, and that would be having to work 40 hours a week. So I don't think that the proper due diligence on what these jobs are really going to yield from this mall has been done. I think somebody's got a little critical thinking, like I did in an hour today, is really required there. I also think the plan itself, which is supposed to be 700,000 square feet, has a pretty, according to today's site from GGP, a pretty paltry offering on what it's giving the public, and I think that needs to be revisited. So at the end of the day, before anybody votes on this LDA, they need a better plan, comprehensive and serious traffic impact studies. GGP's revenue last quarter was $580 million. They can afford to fund some decent traffic studies. They're a publicly traded company who's doing great. they can afford to let us have an independent traffic study and pay for it before anybody votes on the LDA. They bought the property with a different use on that LDA, and they owe us. They owe Norwalk some efforts, not asking for gimmies. That's my point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for 30 seconds, I'm trying to comment on anything you said, that the LDA has a business term side and the LDA has a master conceptual plan side. And the master conceptual, they're together, they will then wind up at the end package. The business term is the one I was talking about earlier, trying to at least get the business term settled. And that has to do with more of the economics and compensations and limitations, where the conceptual master plan gets more into accessibility and that. So the one was trying to get the business terms, I think, out of the way first, with making it more simpler.
I
But the
suppose
package
from my
does not go
layperson
separately,
point of
the package
view.
goes together.
Okay, I
So
appreciate
there's-
that.
I just wanted to explain the process.
No, I'm glad you did. I mean, to me, it's,
But at the end of the day,
There
they
needs to
get
be
voted
more-
on together, so.
okay.
And next. Anybody else?
I'll go.
Oh.
For the record, Jackie Lightfield, 5 Wall Street, current chairman of the Norwalk Center Task Force, former chairman of the Zoning Commission, which is how I would like to reference some of the things I'm about to talk about regarding the business terms of the LDA. This handout, of course, is a map. And unfortunately, I didn't catch it before I ran over here. The bottom got cut off. But this represents stuff that I know about in terms of projects that are currently under development from a construction standpoint. In red, including the proposed mall, and in purple, which is kind of hard to read since I have some text overlaying it, are Connecticut State DOT projects that have either gone out to bid or will be going out to bid this fall for construction next year. And the reason that I think it's important to bring this up at this juncture with the LDA is because, as you know, I've been before you several times talking about the need to have somebody from the planning department and planning and zoning here at this meeting, because as a planning committee, yours to look at the overall entire city of Norwalk and not just concentrate in the redevelopment areas. But this map shows us that the 3 ways that we can cross the Norwalk River over the next 2 years will be impacted not only by construction that the Connecticut Department of Transportation is working on, but also by projects that have been approved both by this body and planning and zoning. And it's worth mentioning here because part of the state's investment and part of the city's investment in North Water Street was to alleviate traffic concerns from people leaving South Norwalk and people getting into South Norwalk along North Main Street. And if you spend any time on North Water Street and Water Street these days, you can see that the plan worked. Cars are moving quite freely through that area, and traffic is no longer the backup that it has been on North Main Street and South Main Street. The original part of Water Street is still problematic. That's the main exit point for Village Creek and Harbor View and Shorefront Park and so on, and we need to probably address that. So my recommendation to you tonight is to take under consideration the financial impacts of the investments that you've already made, that the state has already made, on alleviating traffic congestion in South Norwalk and into South Norwalk, and in understanding that additional projects are going to change some of the assumptions that you have been led to believe are currently in play. And I want to draw your attention to the Connecticut DOT project of the dockyard that will be taking place at Crescent Street and Smith Street. As you know, I've been a big proponent of making that a pedestrian friendlier link. It currently has rail cars being stored and lots of extraneous dumping that has happened over time. But the state's project is to expand that as to a working dockyard to service the Danbury line. And that will impact all of the work and expenditures that the city has invested in Oyster Shell Park and improving that connectivity there. And I believe that your latest conceptual master site plan indicates that GGP is proposing that's part of their public realm amenity by increasing the connectivity on the back there. So I bring these things to your attention. Again, my recommendation is that you perhaps plan for having somebody that can advise you from a transportation standpoint. I would recommend that the city probably hire as a consultant a transportation planner to take a look at the overall picture of how all of this development, not just particularly this project, but all of this development is impacting the quality of life of the city. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Stratton, that's right.
Thanks. Doug Adams, developer for General Growth Properties for the project. So I appreciate the committee's time. Again, I'll be brief. I just say I appreciate the concerns on traffic and the other issues and employment numbers that we're putting out. Very important to us as well. We certainly agree this needs a full traffic report. We think that it should come during the site plan approval process as it has for other projects. We put things on our website to be transparent, and I'm happy to offer to go through our figures provided by HRNA with folks, either as a group or one-on-one, to make sure that we're clearly explaining what we have been told are the impacts, and we believe are the impacts. So I offer that opportunity to go through that. Ms. Lightfield been very forthcoming with her comments. We appreciate it. I have great respect for Jackie. I've interfaced with her over the years when I was involved in the Waypoint project and now. So I take a lot of her comments to heart and have no question of her dedication to the city of Norwalk. I do respectfully wish that she would include in her title of Executive Director of the Stanford Partnership. That is one of the titles she holds in addition to the work she's done for Norwalk. Lastly, I want to thank the committee again. We got a lot of feedback from you, other council members in the agency. We tried to turn that around quickly and give you the package you have there, as well as the one that we submitted before the meeting that you probably have not had time to deal with yet. We're working with Mr. Sheen and his staff to provide whatever follow-up information, questions he has, and his consultants. So we'll continue that process. We appreciate the special meetings. It's a great help to us, very important to us, as timing always is in these projects. We respectfully ask that in addition to the urban renewal plan, that the committees consider looking at the LDA and the concept master site plan together and the massing thereof separately. That's what we've, our preference, but we understand that's completely up to the city and the agency as they see fit. But we felt we could at least voice our opinion. But again, thank you for your time. Thank you for, again, your offers and your holding special meetings. It's very helpful to keep the process moving along. Thank you.
Anybody else for the program? Okay, well, I have a new hand in the back first. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Good evening. I wanted to thank this committee and also the redevelopment agency folks that one or two may be here, for having these special meetings. I can't ask enough that you have an informed vote. And I know you've spent a lot of time on this. You've had many meetings, Doug and I, Chairman Doug Hempstead, and I appreciate this. But I want to make sure you have a truly informed vote so that your votes can be the best possible under the circumstances. In that, I again offer the following comment and suggestions. I ask that you consider before your LDA vote on the business plan and of course the other master plan that you mentioned, that you engage a specialist, an expert on ensuring that this particular plan is the best possible, that we have enough mixed use. I know from the current plans that there will be 3 types of mixed use. Are there enough when you look at the original need with Spinnaker and their predecessor? I think not. I was pleased that we had a mall expert hired to discuss the possibilities of the efficacy of malls, but what I was saddened by, and And it was great that you had that, but unless I just haven't had access to the report, I feel all of the council folks and the redevelopment agency folks need to have an expert come out and talk about what else this site could be used for. And had we had that on your table, I think we could have a real informed vote. But that seems to be missing. Now, if I missed a report from an expert on mixed use, I apologize. But I just don't know, and I think more due diligence is done. Please listen to Gordon Tully. He's an architect. I am not, nor is anyone else that has spoken. So he has said several things. I couldn't be here tonight, I don't know why. He has said some really interesting things about looking at some alternative plans, including the mall, but other things. I ask that in your conditions that you plan on, if you can impose such conditions, that they are enforceable. It's carrot and stick. That may include in lieu of, we always used to have the in lieu of parking. Let's have in lieu of payments for housing. Because as you know, this area, a lot of people, when it was popular to take property as a government, people were kicked out of their businesses and their homes in this area. I would love to call upon GGP, and maybe I've been hearing that maybe they're exploring this, some off-site affordable housing preferred, some way to kind of give us back some of the original intentions. I don't know if a hotel is good enough. I would like, at this stage, I would like a condition in the LDA about employing a green roof. The reason I'm mentioning this is fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. When Spinnaker's plan for a green roof made it through LDA changes, made it through even a public hearing at the zoning commission, all of a sudden the first thing dropped off of their plan was the green roof. Oh, it's too expensive, it's not going to work. A green roof helps actually reduce the stormwater management costs of this. It keeps the building cooler. These are all professional engineers. I'm not an engineer, but I do read and I'm in the environmental business. It has been proven. Look it up. Have the staff look it up. Green roofs are possible on this project. Now, I haven't had the time yet to talk to Mr. Cafaro and Mr. Adams, and I do have respect for them. They know I care about this subject. Please include it as a condition, because somehow, oops, in the zoning commission process, it will disappear if it's promised. I'd like to see it in a condition of the LDA. Lastly, and I've mentioned this before when you had your meeting for the public down in the community room, and that is, and I echo Sarah and others, the traffic study. There is no reason why, I'm not asking that they do it, that we have GGP pay for doing a independent traffic study with the traffic engineers of our choice. Let's at least do some modeling based upon the proposed scenarios, and you can do this. I was told back then, months ago, oh, don't worry about it, we're gonna handle it in the zoning commission. I start shaking again because I haven't met a zoning commission traffic engineer applicant study that doesn't say there's zero effect. And then we find, like on Connecticut Avenue, oops, here we go again. So I'm just asking that you hire, and I think Ms. Lightfield and Sarah and others have said this, I'm not the only one, please listen to us. We are doing this because we want to make this a great project. We don't want to affect other businesses and housing. We don't want to affect East Norwalk in a deleterious way because we just didn't do our due diligence at this critical time. You can do it. Go back to the drawing board. Hire those consultants. They would love to work for us. Let's get good independent thinkers on both alternative plans, more mixed use, and secondly on traffic. Thank you.
No, I just Doug Adams did bring up, one of my many titles. I have dozens of titles for many organizations, and yes, I am the executive director of the Stanford Partnership. I am not here speaking on behalf of the Stanford Partnership. I am actually speaking on behalf of Norwalk 2.0, which I am a co-founder of, and also at the C level, the chief problem solver for Norwalk 2.0. And let me remind you what Norwalk 2.0 does. We are a creative placemaking economic development organization. We are a nonprofit. We've been around for 5 years. We write many grants, which we get every once in a while, and we use those grants to create a vibrant and flourishing downtown, of which SoNo and Wall Street obviously are what we call our downtown. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you. Yes, this is it.
Diane Cece, Olmsted Place. So I've just kind of been absorbing what people are saying, and a common theme comes back. Not an uncommon theme for me, for some of you in the room, which is I feel like there's a lot of undue pressure on our Common Council people to rush this through. And people are using words like expedite and, you know, making it sound like it's, you know, a positive thing to try to do joint meetings and run things concurrently. And maybe in some circumstances that's the case. But what you hear the public asking for tonight are things that would generally take more time. And so you would do your due diligence and you would spend the time to answer these questions and do the analysis. Really go back to the beginning and say, or let me preface it by saying now, so many of the people that I talk to think that the approval of having a mall there is a done deal. And so now let's make this maybe the least objectionable mall that we can have. But I'm still back a few steps from that to say, is this the highest and best use? Why are we saying that this is the parcel of the Gold Coast of Connecticut that's so coveted, and yet the highest and best use is a mall? You know, did we really investigate, you know, why this thing wasn't developed under the mixed use that the entire city ultimately did come out to support? Don't forget those properties were taken by eminent domain, by the way. And so, you know, do we reward then a developer who sits on the property for years and misses every cycle in the economics to do mixed use or to do office? And then to extend the enterprise zone there with all kinds of tax goodies, which then said to that developer, now you have the real piece of gold to go and sell to someone. And surely GGP didn't buy that property without a full understanding of some percentage of the success of getting this thing through. And so I would caution you not to rush this thing through. You may sound like it's the right thing to do, but why are you doing that? And doing it in a way where, for example, you have special meetings, joint meetings, one of which was very important. I missed, and I watch agendas very closely, because it wasn't posted on the city's calendar. By the way, it needs to be on the city's calendar to comply with FOI, so that's another matter. But having the joint meetings and rushing these things through, especially in August, I won't speak for league members, but I know some are here that are former ones, that the league and organizations like the Coalition of Norwalk Neighborhood Association for years have begged commissions like yours, committees like yours, to not take up such a important project in August. You know, we realize that work and things have to continue in August, but why would you have something of this monumental degree on your August calendars, and then with Mr. Hempstead suggesting, now we're gonna ram it through even more with August 17th or August 25th. We have to step back from this thing and give you guys time to do your due diligence, and if you don't understand what that is in terms of the questions that the public is asking, then ask the public. You know, I just don't think there's a comfort level with it. If it's some arbitrary deadline, I don't want to misquote anyone, but I think I read something in the paper that said that Mr. Cafaro was starting to understand more about how retail development works. And there was this cycle he mentioned about the deadline of being in for April and October, okay? And I can kind of understand that. When you miss those marks, you miss a whole cycle. And so that leaves you guys sitting there with a Nordstrom's and a Bloomingdale's dictating to the city of Norwalk under what conditions they're willing to come to the table. But I'm sorry, I say kind of the opposite. This is our Gold Coast parcel there. We dictate to them under which conditions we'll have them here. And in the absence of those conditions, or even you guys considering the conditions, I think this is a rush to judgment. I think it's we've got to do something rather than nothing, and I don't agree with that. And I don't think it's the highest and best use for this property. But if it is a fait accompli for whatever mechanisms have already happened and the dynamics of this, then I really beg you to listen to the other good people in this room who are asking you to do the right things on the front end so that we can understand what the impact of this thing is going to be. You know, people like GGP may take a look at it and think,
there's some peripheral things that may happen within their surrounding neighborhoods. I call it collateral damage, honestly, because people are always gonna find the path of least resistance either to get to that mall or to get as far away from it as they can. And as an East Norwalker, I can tell you I'm gonna be impacted. Golden Hill is gonna be impacted, Spring Hill is gonna be impacted. Anyway, my time is up, but thank you, and please, just step back, hit the, Diane Lorcachella uses this term, hit the pause button. Slow down. Please don't make these decisions in August too, when people aren't here. You can see this room right now. A topic like this would be packed any other time of the year, but there's nobody here. I mean, there's not a lot of people here. Thank you.
Great, good. Public participation closed, and I'll take a little umbrage at a comment that I'm trying to ram something through. In fact, I'm getting more criticism from being a little too pokey, from others.
Consider the source, Mr.
Yes, but,
Just saying.
well, I think from the committee's aspect, the intent of having joint meetings is not to rush. The intent, though, and procedurally wise, which is a large criticism of NOAA because of so many approving agencies, it would take 2.5 years to get something through, which to me, as a business person, is that's not good government either. So the reason I'm having joint meetings was everybody hears the same presentation together. Everybody gets to ask questions. Sometimes a question from a member of the council may spike a question from the redevelopment commission, and vice versa. So everybody then, Tim gets to walk away with not having to worry what the commission said, the council said. He walks away, I've got a whole bunch of answers for a whole bunch of people that I've got to come up with. So the expediting, as it's called, is an efficiency measure, not a rush measure. All right? Because those committee members who have worked with me in the past, in this term, know the way I am. I'm very methodical, make sure they have all the information they need, and they've got to satisfy every answer that they can. They may not agree at the end of the day, whatever's presented, but they've got enough information to make an intelligent decision. That is my goal, and will be maintained to my goal. The public, I just said prior to this, the public part of the LDA that will get to the public's over comment period, and if we have the site plan by then, if we don't, we don't. Will be in September. It'll probably be in the first part of September, not in August. These are more, we're trying to get some workshops done more than anything, because we got the packet on Monday night from GGP, which are the responses to the site plan comments that came out of our last meeting that we had. So I know a lot of members between work and everything else, getting home at night, probably haven't hit too much of this, including moi, all right? And Tim hasn't even had it. I think Mr. Sheehan even comments today, haven't had a chance to go through it all as of yet. So we know there's gonna be some period of time that we're gonna have to go back to this, and it's okay. The LDA terms had a pretty lengthy process. I'm calling them the business terms, had a pretty long, lengthy process with city letting the city attorneys, and we hired our separate attorney just to address it for the city also on top of this, and the other attorneys and some leadership, and then we had a full council meeting in executive session. So we understood this. Now our point from this point on, I think the LDA terms should probably get a fairly thorough thrashing out between now and September, then hit the public. Because I don't like at this stage of the game that everything's a little bit behind the scenes. It's not my forte usually, but I know tonight we're gonna go through this one time, and then after that, I really don't think, I know as chairman, unless there's something real critical that something's balked at in negotiations, there's no reason anymore to have any more executive sessions on that. So having said that, and having that, it's already 7:45, and we got about 10 hours worth of work to try and do in at least 2 or 3 groans, please, from, all right, we can get, yeah, I know. Okay, so if I can, I did close the public participation, sorry. Okay, having said that. Mr. Sheehan, why don't we, because once we go to executive session, we're gonna have to clear the room out. Can you briefly go through what at least you've had a chance to look at so far from the master plan?
Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to indicate, as most of you will recall from the joint meeting, the agency's official response to the previous following was that filing by GGP was that it was an incomplete filing. At this point, they have submitted additional information that you all got in your packages. They submitted additional information this morning that you don't have yet. What I'd like to basically indicate, and I think that's the best I can do at this point, is to say, based on what I've reviewed, we are probably at or close to a complete filing relative to what we would accept as a filing of a conceptual master site plan. That being said, there are concerns that remain. I outlined my concerns at the previous joint meeting. I do not see, at least from this filing that you have, that there have been significant adjustments made relative to the conceptual master site plan. But I'm scheduled to spend more time with this tomorrow morning, and certainly would be able to provide both you and the redevelopment agency a more in-depth understanding of what's here on the 17th. Also, Mr. Chairman, I think there are a couple of issues that the committee should understand at the outset based on some of the public comment that was provided. When this was an urban renewal plan area, and all of the properties that were in it were subject to the use of eminent domain. Not all of the properties that were ultimately made up this site were taken by eminent domain. And I want that to be very clear. For the meeting on the 17th, I will actually provide you the actual properties that were taken by eminent domain. The vast majority of the properties were an agreed upon settlement with the property owner, and the property owner was paid fair market value for their property, and they determined that they were accepting of the fair market value. So to say that all of the properties that are here and it made up this site were taken by eminent domain is inaccurate. I also think that it is important for the committee members to understand that the city does not own the land asset. The land asset is owned by a private company. It's a publicly traded company. They paid $36 million for this asset, and at the end of the day, the city did invest in terms of making and positioning this site for redevelopment opportunities, but it doesn't own the asset. And I think that's a very important distinction. I've heard everything from the city should put a public park on this site, but it's not the city's, the city doesn't own it. A private or a publicly traded company now owns it. I will go back and actually look at the various issues in terms of mixed use for each of the two previous redevelopment plans that were presented, both by the Time and Malloy's company and Spinnaker, and assess for you where this one is falling out relative to mixed use in terms of square footage.
Anybody want any additional information? I know, go ahead.
I was wondering, it seems like we're looking to the 17th, which would be when we'll have more information to review. In the packet, there's the 3D rendering. Was wondering if you could either bring that on the laptop or something and we could set up for it, or if it exists in, tangible form, either way. Because I think it's helpful, but there's some areas that you can't see, like the tunnel area is not shown in really any of them very well. So I'd like to see kind of more of a walkthrough type setup on that. That's it for now. I mean, this is pretty hefty. It's a lot to look at.
Right. The, Shannon, on my bucket list,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we've asked before, can we still get some, where are there 300+ feet of tunnel somewhere that we can examine how it's lit up, especially in New England versus Florida or Texas, where it's a little bit lighter, longer. And I think, I'm sure you'll address that, but I have some concerns that there's, and I haven't seen the supplement you got, so I have no clue that some of the public realm stuff really is not defined.
I haven't had an
I know,
opportunity.
I'm just saying, some of my initial just go through, I haven't gone through a lot of detail either, because of meeting after meeting this week. But I'm just saying, if the bucket list, I'd take a closer look, because some things seem like very typical, happens at a mall anyhow. So I don't, I'm looking at, I think, and committee members tell me if I'm wrong, and that's a terrible way to phrase things. Tell me if I misinterpret it.
They're wrong. No.
Okay, yeah. That I think we envision the public realm to really be more public use space versus a typical internal space where they set up Santa's lamp kind of thing, you know? And that was my vision, and if my vision is wrong, please let me know, folks, okay? So we'll have to spend, obviously, it came in late, you know, that's why even why I held up the agenda, because in discussion late, mid Friday afternoon, about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock with Mr. Sheehan, this wasn't in yet. So I held up the agenda, so that's why you got a little late, but it just didn't come in till late, so. Please, this weekend, we got nothing to do, sit on the veranda, you know, pour yourself a pina colada, whatever, strawberry daiquiri, or whatever.
I
Read it.
also want to indicate to the committee members, although I may be the one that's sitting in front of you most often, there are folks that are actually dealing with looking at this project from the city's standpoint relative to traffic. You know, Ty and Bond, who actually did the original design associated with the infrastructure that's out there right now, is working with the redevelopment agency in going back and forth with the folks from GGP with regards to their traffic analysis, understanding their counts, assessing the counts, and then figuring out how that ultimately is transposing onto what they have as design, roadway design, and access and egress from the site. So I didn't want you to think that there, and nor did I want the public to think that there was nobody on the city side that was reviewing issues relative to traffic at this preliminary stage of the project.
Any other questions for anybody? It's fine.
Oh, it really wasn't a question, I just wanted to respond to some of the comments and Tim's work and everything like that, I mean, I think the answer for me is simple, like, if I don't think that the public had a good enough chance to review this before we're moving down the line with votes along the way, then it's pretty easy to vote no. I mean, that's basic, but we haven't got into the nuts and bolts yet of the business side of the LDA, and that has yet to be put out there into the public, so they can even like look at it and comment and be prepared to come to us. But you know, maybe that's not even tonight's discussion, that's all right. But the traffic is a huge concern, and the way Tim explained that, and you explained to me last meeting, was that GGP is gonna pay for it, but we're picking, and that's Ty and Bond, or who's doing the traffic study? We didn't hire that person yet.
Right now, at this stage of it, the traffic, there's been some preliminary information relative to traffic that supports what they have put into their design. And at the end of the day, Ty and Bond is working with their traffic folks, the folks that did their traffic analysis, to bring forward the counts and things like that,
Right.
that get them to an understanding as to whether what they have in here, ultimately from their assessment, if that actually works.
Okay, right. The combination of the counts of amounts of cars coming, plus the logistics of
Right.
pulling in, stacking, waiting, dropping off, picking up, parking, waiting, bus fumes underneath the, you know, all those kind of things.
Concerns like that.
Yeah,
yes.
okay, thank you.
Okay, we close the chapter on this one for tonight? Okay.
Seemingly number 2 is going off till the 17th.
Correct. At this though, and, if, everybody got this, right? Don't throw it away, cause I don't wanna have to reissue it. I think we've killed half of the forest in Oregon on this project so far. So everybody, you're not gonna get reissued this. If it's been issued within the last couple of meetings, hang on to it,
Yeah.
all right, please?
That's in today's packet. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I
It's
got it.
available online, if not, we'll make it available online.
I think we're getting smart enough about not throwing away our packets and then like expecting the staff to like redo it.
Thank you. And we appreciate
We're not that bad, all right?
Okay. We'll have a nice fire at the end of the year.
Just take
Okay,
the
so-
plastic pieces out.
There were no. And Ms. Brown, I appreciate that. I just thought about one other comment that came out here tonight. Nobody's trying to rush anything on a GGP schedule. My biggest concern, schedule-wise, is the fact that there's an election this year, that there are gonna be people changing out. And if you wanna screw up the process, start from scratch again in November. All right? And that's the only thing that's in the back pattern, but has to be a collaborative, cooperative effort that GGP has to submit in a timely fashion, whatever we're asking for at the same point. So I'm just saying, it's a two-way street. Go ahead, Mr.
I
Peck.
don't want to backtrack on you, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
but I'd love some more additional information on the connectivity through North Water Street going down to, Oyster Shell Park, Maritime Yard, and so forth. It seems like all these renderings kind of just dry up right there. And I have concerns, some being sidewalk widths, lighting, because right now we're looking at the tunnel, train tracks. It just doesn't seem to be something that's going to invite people to walk through. It seems, if anything, is going to deter people from walking. So if Tim, you could give me any information you can on that.
Certainly. That's clearly one of the sticking points with us in terms of the lack of pedestrian connectivity to the entire project.
Right, and if it's like you've got West Avenue, at that point we're gonna have 7 lanes, no one's gonna be walking that way. Through the back, connecting to SoNo, that seems like the only route, so. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I sort of, how are you gonna do this versus, got it. Good point. Okay, we're gonna move on to the last item, folks. And the last item is the business terms of the LDA. It's been recommended, and like I said before, hopefully it'll be the very last time we need to do this, that's maybe at a council meeting, that we go, and it's been advised because the terms have not been finalized, and there may be some sensitive material that we're gonna go into executive session for that item. I'm sorry, folks, but at the end of the day, the terms will be out there for public comment, I assure you, all right? And it won't be the day before we're voting on it, all right? But with that, I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
All right, any discussion? Aye? Okay, I didn't know if you have to vote.